let's start the show.
It's February 22nd, 2013. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. I'm Will Smith. Joining me, Mr. Chan. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right.
Norman Chan.
I'm not feeling sick anymore.
That's good. That's good. I'm feeling, much better as well.
Lost a little weight.
A couple of ounces at most, but they were pus-filled, gross ounces. So, do you want to talk about that now, or you want to save that for the outtakes at the end? You want to wait to hear about it? It's real gross.
Let's hear about it.
So, since we last spoke, I went home on a weekend. You and I have spoken since then, but I went home on Saturday and enjoyed a weekend after the first kind of couple of days back at work. And on Saturday night, I developed what I would describe as the worst stomach ache I've ever had in my life.
After you broke a toilet.
I broke the toilet handle. Yeah.
Okay.
So I broke the handle off the toilet, and I was like, "Well, we have one bathroom."
Correlated?
No relation. We have one bathroom, so like having no functioning toilet is a real bad thing.
Because having the worst stomach ache in your life and breaking a toilet often are correlated.
But this was before the stomach ache.
Okay.
The stomach ache was just a hint of a stomach ache at this point. So I went out to
a rumbling,
like Home Depot, and
would you describe it as a rumbling?
It felt like mild indigestion. It felt like maybe I had a burrito for lunch, and instead of eating 2/3 of the burrito, which would have been wise, I ate the whole burrito.
A loosening of your intestinal
There was
tract?
no loosening of the bowels. No.
Okay. Intestinal tract.
We're going to get right into this. I apologize in advance. So I went to Home Depot, and I stopped and got diapers and stuff like that because it seems like 2/3 of my life now is going to get diapers. No. Home Depot and Target are right next to each other. Okay. So I got diapers at Target and a toilet handle at Home Depot. I bet Target has toilet handles. But anyway, as I was leaving Home Depot, the mild discomfort started to escalate to what I would call a pretty bad stomach ache. Kind of constant throbbing in the center of the stomach, centered under the navel, and going over to the right side.
Sometimes when you have a really bad stomach ache, you know it will pass.
This seemed like it could have been gas.
You know it will pass.
Yes.
Like, you know that it's just build up to a big flush.
At this point, I was looking forward to what I felt would probably one of the great farts of my lifetime.
Okay.
Right? Like, I felt like that was probably on deck.
Anticipation.
Yeah, something to look forward to. But as I was driving home, it kept getting worse and worse until by the time I got home, I was not quite doubled over yet, but I was, I fixed the toilet. Because I was like, shit, if I die and the toilet's broken,
that's bad.
Gina's going to be really pissed off at me.
They won't get you have diapers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're not human sized. They're just baby sized.
Okay.
They're not astronaut diapers or anything like that. So I fixed the toilet, and then I immediately skipped dinner, and I went and laid down on the bed and tried to get comfortable enough to sleep, thinking I'd wake up and it would feel better.
Spicy foods? Because spicy foods.
I'd eat nothing.
Spicy
Nothing
foods
bad.
can help you when you have stomach flu or stomach problem.
Yeah, but at this point, I kind of thought I'd had food poisoning or something like that. It felt like a food poisoning stomach ache at this point.
So
this is at 8 o'clock.
You want to wait that out, or do you want to get that out of your system?
At this point, I eat some Tums and some Pepto-Bismol in fairly separated, thinking maybe that'll help. And then I just try to find a comfortable way to lay for 3 or 4 hours.
Okay. Wow. It's an awfully good excuse for a new father.
At this point, Gina's pretty pissed off at me. I'm pretty sure she's thinking, yeah, you just don't want to change any more diapers tonight, you asshole. I'm onto this. So about midnight, she finishes the feed before she comes to bed, and I said, I think maybe we should call the nurse line on the insurance card.
Wow.
I was like,
the decision to do that is a big decision.
It is a huge decision because
because as men typically do, we want to wait it out.
I want it to get better.
You don't need
I get better on my own. I don't need outside help.
Of course.
So
you're inconveniencing everyone.
It is a major inconvenience.
Everyone. When you decide to call the emergency line.
So I called the emergency line. I couldn't talk at this point. Like I couldn't make coherent sentences. So Gina is like
plus sign doctor.
Gina's asking questions,
medic.
and I'm like giving like 1 to 10
medic.
with fingers, right? And I don't remember a lot of this. So the nurse says you should call your GP and his on-call, because it's a big practice and there's an on-call doctor all the time. And the on-call doctor said, why don't you come to the emergency room and we'll check it out and make sure everything's okay, because it could be food poisoning, it could be appendicitis, it could be a whole bunch of different things, varying levels of badness. So
At which point in your brain you're thinking,
at this point I'm thinking hopefully they'll just give me big painkillers. Like I just want relief from pain at this point.
release the valves.
Anything to make this feel better. So then we have to load up the baby, because you can't leave the baby in the cage at home or anything. It's frowned upon. And I say we in the most generous sense of the word.
You stumbled to the car.
I kind of went and laid in the back of the car, around the car seat, and Gina snapped it into place with me there. And then we had the reverse high-speed drive to the hospital. Because Gina was induced when we had the baby, so we didn't get to do the, God, I'm in labor, we've got to get to the hospital as fast as possible drive.
Convenient, leisurely stroll to the hospital.
Yeah, we just drove it was like normal speed. We stopped and got some food, and,
Cheers and lollipops, and everyone's happy.
Reminiscing.
Yeah.
We're like, are you going to be sad to not be pregnant anymore? Kind of yes, kind of no, it turns out.
I feel like I'm going to die.
And this was the thing that nobody tells you about labor, apparently, is that if you're driving to the hospital, you don't want a bumpy ride when you're in labor, because it's already uncomfortable and more bumps. This was the exact same thing. I was riding in the back of the car, screaming at her every time she hit a fucking pothole. Like it was real dark.
And what time was this?
By this point, it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe 1:30.
Okay.
So we got to the hospital.
One of the problems of living in Pacifica.
Yeah, I mean, we could have gone to the crappy hospital down by us, but I'd rather go to the hospital with the doctor that I know.
Is the crappy hospital in Pacifica also double as the pet hospital?
No, it is not also a veterinary clinic.
Okay.
So, yeah, we get there. They make me wait in the entry for a long time, even though there's nobody fucking around. And finally, as they're like doing the interview, I don't know if you've ever been to the emergency room before. This was my first trip.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. You went the same place I went when I sprained my leg.
Yes.
Sprained my ankle.
So you go in, you sit in this little chair, and they weigh you and take your blood pressure, and they kind of check your pupil dilation and stuff, and then they ask you a bunch of questions.
Are you high?
Yeah. How high are you on a scale of 1 to 10? At this point, I started feeling a lot better. I was like, man, I am the biggest wuss in the world.
Oh.
Maybe I just had like the worst case of gas ever. And the nurse is like, oh yeah, could be. Let's take some blood. We'll check some stuff out. And why don't you go back and lay down on the little beds in the back, and we'll send your wife back.
Here, how painful is it? Prodding, lots of prodding.
Yeah, there was a lot of poking.
Okay.
A lot of poking. But even at that point, the poking wasn't that bad. And one of the things we learned in this is that I have a pretty high pain threshold. So they drew blood. I laid in the room. They sent Gina and the baby home because there's no reason to have the baby in the flu-riddled emergency room in the wee hours of the morning. I was going to be there. I had to get a CAT scan, so I was going to be there for 3 or 4 hours anyway. And then they did the CAT scan, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you absolutely."
I want to imagine what Gina was like on the drive back home.
I can't imagine it was good.
Lots of head shaking and lots of talking to the baby.
Well, no. At this point, so when I talked to the attending in the ER. The attending basically said, look, you are showing all the classic signs of appendicitis. So if you do not have this, I will be really stunned. And at that point, we just had to get the CAT scan to confirm.
Okay.
Have you ever had a CAT scan before?
No.
So this is a weird experience.
Is it like the MRI machine where you just go in the tube?
It's like a donut. It's not like a tube. It's not a coffin. It's a donut. It was much more pleasant than an MRI.
Does the donut go around you, or do you go in the donut?
You go in and out of the donut. It's like you're on a 3D printer tray and you're going back and forth.
Why haven't we gotten to the point where the donut moves around you and you stay still?
I think they can probably control you better than the donut looked really big. The donut looked like it had a bunch of spinny stuff with magnets and stuff hanging off of it.
In the interest of patient health, would it make more sense to move the donut?
Moving the sled was very pleasant. It was a gentle movement.
Gyro?
It was the smoothest moving surface I've ever laid on, probably. Like if you imagine like one of those mechanics sleds and think about it being on rails and being the smoothest experience ever, it was like that.
Okay.
So they inject you with something that's, I assume, mildly radioactive or something, some isotope. I didn't ever look it up. But the weird thing about that is when you get the injection, you feel warm in areas that have highly concentrated with blood vessels. Like you get a warm genital feeling when you get it feels like you're going to pee, kind of, in a real weird way when you get the CAT scan.
CAT scan shiver.
It was super bizarre.
Okay.
So anyway, long story short, they checked me into the hospital after the CAT scan. sent me upstairs, and I met the surgeon that afternoon and had my appendix out on like Sunday afternoon a couple weeks ago.
What is the process of removing an appendix?
So when you sign the waiver that says, "Hey, here's what we're going to do," they say there's two things. We're going to start out doing this laparoscopically, which means they'll cut anywhere from 1 to 4 holes depending on the position of your appendix and stuff like that. And they do the same thing for gallbladder removal and a bunch of other abdominal surgery. If it doesn't go well, or if they find some complication or something they have to do something, then you also have to sign the consent for the open appendectomy procedure, which is when they've already done the laparoscopic holes, but then they just cut like a 4-inch incision right at the spot and do it the old school way. So for me, I have 3 holes. One is like in the pube region. One is maybe 3 inches above that, and one is right across the bottom of my belly button.
Why did you need 3 holes?
I think they're for lights and air.
Oh my God!
So what they do is they inflate you. They open these holes and then they blow a bunch of air in there,
and then you get bloated.
Yeah, he said
the cavity in your body gets bloated.
He said literally you blow up like a balloon and you will look like you're pregnant by the end of a ton.
Were you awake for this at all?
Fuck no, I was totally unconscious.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
It would be really disturbing.
It's a lot of open air inside you.
Well, I have pictures, and the pictures are like of a cavity. Like there's a pocket of air around the affected
How did
area.
they take pictures, or do they offer?
Well, it's a I asked. I was like, hey, I want to see pictures when you're doing this, you know. And he's
press print screen on the monitor.
Yeah, exactly. And he's familiar with our work and of course Jamie and Adam's work. So they do this. The procedure took probably, I don't know, it's general anesthesia, so I have no idea. I went to sleep and woke up super, super drunk. You know, when you have general anesthesia, you feel real good when you come out, but I don't remember anything from pretty much the rest of Sunday afternoon. They ended up being able to do the whole thing laparoscopically. The incision on the belly button is like maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches long, and the other ones are like fractions of an inch.
In the belly button.
In the belly. I can show you.
No.
You want to see?
Nope.
It's right here. Look. It's all covered in Neosporin and oozing weird substances. And then I was in the hospital. I've never been in the hospital before. I've been in the hospital for other people.
You've never been a patient.
I've never been a patient
in a modern urban hospital.
It is. So this is a Catholic hospital because it's St. Mary's.
What does that mean?
It means that a lot of the nurses are nuns.
Okay.
Which is a little.
But they're not wearing nun outfits.
Yes, no. They do. Some of them wear nun outfits. Some of them wear like a nurse outfit. They don't wear scrubs. They'll wear like a Sister Teresa outfit, Mother Teresa outfit. Yes. The night nurses. The night nurses were almost always nuns, like the ones that had the bad shift from midnight to 8 a.m. And frequently they were wearing like not like black and white habits,
but candles and like.
No, it wasn't like
the pocket.
There's no votives or anything like that.
Right.
No incense burning, but they were wearing like nurse nun outfits.
Okay.
A different costume than the normal nurses.
They could sense the heathen.
Yeah, I mean, and then the Pope retired, so that happened while I was there. That was exciting.
Wow.
The thing that I didn't understand about the hospital is how quickly you lose all vanity, like there's no privacy, there's no body shame in the hospital. Everything's on display all the time. People come in, they're just like, hey, can I see? And you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. And you take up, your little dress comes up and, there you go. It was exciting. It was a fun weekend. I highly encourage everybody to never, ever do that if they can avoid it. But the big takeaway for this is if you ever have pain, the thing the surgeon told me, and this is good advice, if you ever have pain that you would say is the worst pain you've ever felt in that area.
And are not a pansy.
Yeah, and it's not like the first time you've ever, if you ever have a headache that's the worst headache you've ever had in your life, you should call your doctor. If you have a stomachache that's the worst stomachache you've ever felt in your life, you should call your doctor.
All right.
Yeah. So.
You call your GP first? Or
I call my GP.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to call a gastrointestinal surgeon or something like that. The surgical floor. The other takeaway from this for me is that the floor that I was on, which was the surgical recovery floor, and I assume this is the same way in most hospitals, it was all old people, like old kind of in bad shape old people, not like healthy vitamin commercial old people. It has encouraged me in a profound way to take better care of myself. So I end up being a vitamin commercial old person, not a.
You want to be a juice guy.
Yeah, you want to be the guy from Seinfeld, not Lloyd Braun. The medicine ball guy. Frank, what's his name?
Feats of strength.
Feats of Strength. You want to be that guy,
And
not
his- and
not
his grandfather.
not Uncle Leo.
And a son.
Yeah, you want to be. The goal is to be a vitamin commercial old person riding around the country on a big ridiculous motorcycle, or driving around in an RV or something.
With really sharp eyebrows.
Not Costanza's parents.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Costanza's parents are Ben Stiller's parents. Or his dad. at least.
consider Jerry Stiller. Jerry Stiller has a long and storied career. He's been working for a really long time.
So
did anything happen?
So thus ended your trip to the hospital.
So now I can't lift anything for a month, which is really awesome when you have a brand new baby at home.
You can't hold your baby?
I can hold, I can't lift. So like if she places the
So-
baby, you know how when you hold a baby, you put your arms out and expect somebody to lay the baby there? I can do that.
You can grab a baby.
I can't.
You cannot take a baby.
I can take, but I can't like bend over and lift her out of the cradle or anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it sucks. It's real bad.
Wow.
So like I can feed.
Can you lift the milkshake?
What? I can
You
drink.
take things off the table.
I have a weight limit, but it is very low. Yeah. And also, I'm not supposed to use my abs for anything. It turns out you use your abs for everything. Like, walking, standing, getting up out of bed. I have a new way that I get out of bed now.
Is it a roll?
Yeah, you roll onto your side
Is it a
and then you
slide?
push up with your arm. So
You roll onto the ground
you get onto your side,
and you
and then you
on the
use
side
your
of the bed.
No, onto your side. So if you're laying on your back, you can't just do a sit up to get up.
Oh, so
you
you get on
roll
the
over
side?
onto your
Okay.
side, and then you can use this stuff on the side of your
And then
body
you
and push with the cross arm and then the near arm.
Wow.
It's a real
and then,
specific
And then
thing.
you gotta pull. It's up with arms.
Yeah, Sister Angela taught me how to do that. That was a traumatic. So all the time I'm in the hospital, I'm thinking, don't flash the nuns. Please don't flash the nuns. Yeah.
Refraining.
It's horrifying. I've already started blocking that. This is a big tech news week. Kind of a lot of stuff happened.
Bunch of stuff happened.
We should say Gary's on deadline this week, so he is probably gone this week and next week. Maybe back the week after that is the hope. So, and we'll probably line up some guests for next week.
We were out of the office all yesterday.
Yeah, we've been traveling. We wanted to make sure we could talk about PS4 stuff on this show, but we were traveling yesterday and couldn't do it on Wednesday afternoon.
So on the 20th,
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Wednesday, 3 p.m., Sony announced the PlayStation 4. Maybe around
Yeah.
3:15 p.m. Pacific, 6:15 p.m.
I thought there was a 6-hour
Eastern.
window there of Sony press conference. It's hard to remember exactly what time they talked about the hardware.
Exactly 2 hours.
So there's a couple of really interesting things about this. There's a couple of things that I want to make sure we talk about.
Okay.
The hardware, it seems like they've done a much better job on hardware from a developer friendliness perspective than they have in the past. It's not off the shelf exactly, but it's using x86 CPUs rather than something weird and custom Sony developed. It's using AMD's next gen compute cores, and will have as a result a really impressive number of
GCN.
shader units compared to
Well, when you say
6-year-old
next-gen
hardware.
compute core, you mean from the 2.5 years
I mean
ago?
the stuff that's the current iteration of the most recent iteration of the current lifecycle hardware for AMD.
So last week when you were off, we talked about NVIDIA and AMD and their positions right now in the desktop gaming
The
space.
increasingly irrelevant desktop GPU
No,
space.
not irrelevant, but relative to where growth is, there's less growth, significant less
Those
growth.
are neither of those companies' core businesses anymore.
Yes, but it's still a big moneymaker.
Yeah, of course.
And it's still like neither company would like to exit the market like other companies have in the past.
Well, they use the thing about AMD and NVIDIA, especially NVIDIA, is that they use the desktop GPU gaming market to kind of pay R&D as an excuse to develop stuff for the future. So things that are in desktop GPUs today will be in Tegra 4 years from now, the same way that Tegra stuff is based on scaled down, more power efficient versions of older GPUs.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
But desktop is still big. AMD and NVIDIA have been losing market share not only because there's less market all around on the PC graphics side, it's still strong, but also because Intel and integrated graphics are getting better.
Yeah. So they're losing things like mobile,
Yes.
mobile and really cheap PCs. But
where there is some margin, whereas in the high end, very, very high end with low yields, it's very low margin and very, very high price.
I mean, the good thing is it seems like with the growth of Steam over the last 5 or 6 years, the last generation, console generation, really, it's like the opportunity for PC graphics is there. It's just shifted from the $600 cards to the $250 cards in a lot of cases.
As it always has been.
Yeah.
$150 to $250 is the vast majority of people playing games on PC, if that.
Yeah.
If they're doing discrete. And NVIDIA has the best single GPU video card right now. AMD has in their documents, and both formally and informally said that they are sticking with the 7000 series graphics on desktop. That will be their focus for the majority of 2013. Who knows what will happen at the end of the year in December. But Lloyd last week said that this was the case not because they couldn't compete with NVIDIA, but because they wanted to focus many of the resources on APU and being in next-gen consoles.
Yeah.
So,
because it's just to be clear, it's been kind of a not secret that AMD is making at least the graphics for all 3 consoles.
And they have made the graphics for 2 of the consoles in last gen.
Yeah.
Wii and 360 both use AMD.
Yeah.
PlayStation
PS4.
use PS3 use
PS3,
NVIDIA.
yeah, sorry.
And then in the current gen, Wii U and PS4 use AMD graphics.
And
now AMD CPU as well on the PS4 because of their APU.
Right.
So let's talk about their APU, because Sony actually did get very specific in the press
surprisingly
conference
specific,
and also
yeah.
in press releases about what hardware is going to be in the PS4, which, to be fair, is still currently being finalized, which is why they didn't have any hardware.
Specs are subject to change, was what the press release said.
Okay, so what's inside the PS4?
It's an 8-core x86 Jaguar CPU from AMD. We said that before, and
With APU with Jaguar.
Yeah, so we talked about an
Graphics.
APU last week, I assume.
Yes.
But the idea is it's CPU, GPU, and it's almost like a system on a chip, but it's more like a PC on a single package, not necessarily all on one chip.
So if you look at one die,
Yeah.
one big, it's a monolithic die, so it's under the heat sink. It is both the x86 graphics or x86 CPU compute parts and
Yeah.
also the graphics parts arranged in a way so that they can share memory and have no bus between them.
And unlike some of the old dual core packages from Intel from 10 years ago, where it was 2 pieces of silicon under that, what you think of as a CPU when you're putting that in your computer can be 1 piece of silicon on that package. It could be 2 or 3 or 4 chips under there as well. In this case, it's one piece of silicon, which gives advantages in latency and bus speed between the different parts, right?
And also that they don't need to compete with the high-end x86.
Right.
AMD's has never been recently has not been as fast as Intel's core processors, but for consoles they don't need that.
Yeah.
And they don't need the top-line graphics either. What they're more concerned about is power efficiency, scalability, and cheap manufacturing.
Yeah.
And Jaguar is designed so that it can be fabbed basically anywhere, and PlayStation and possibly Microsoft, likely Microsoft, will shop around to find the cheapest factories.
I mean, honestly, since the Radeon 4800, I guess, that was the first that used this kind of current architecture, probably almost 5 years ago, I guess, in 2008 or 2009. AMD has focused a lot on power management more so than raw performance, and they're getting performance by scaling and adding more units that are more power efficient, where NVIDIA has just gone for crazy clock speeds and balls to the
Except for
wall
the
performance.
Kepler.
Except for Kepler, yeah. So 8-core x86 64, AMD 64 Jaguar CPU, and then there's also a Radeon GPU in there that has, I think, 16 or 18 compute clusters. I can't remember.
I don't know exactly the number of compute cores, but the idea is that each core has a certain number of stream processors, and then you multiply that out. So it's
Well, it's a little more complex than that, because where the existing consoles have dedicated, well, that 360 doesn't, but the compute clusters, the shader cores in the compute clusters are all universal. So they run shader programs. They're not specific to vertex or pixel or geometry shaders. They run shader code, and you can do that. That allows you to do specific things that are a little bit different. Yeah. It's unclear how many shader units are inside the cores. I think it was 18 compute cores. I don't have it in my notes.
That APU, that Jaguar APU, is relatively comparable to what AMD will release on consumer side, also for PCs, but you can't compare a PC that you build with what's the hardware that's in the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, they're describing this as semi-custom, and the reason it's semi-custom, the main reason from what I can see is, well, they're definitely adding some dedicated coprocessors to do things like H.264. Well, decode obviously, but also encode, and we'll get to that in a little bit. The other thing that makes it semi-custom is the memory controller, which when you build a chip like this, and the memory controller is absolutely tied to the type of memory you choose to use. So if you want to use DDR3 SDRAM, then you have to use a DDR3 SDRAM controller in this chip. They're actually using a GDDR5 memory controller and memory on this, which gives them much more bandwidth between the system and the memory than you have with DDR3. This isn't a situation where
if you buy 16 gigs of RAM on your PC, you'll say you can have more RAM than on your PS4.
You absolutely can, but the speed, which is what matters, the bottleneck between the system, the CPU, the video card, and the memory, which is how all of this stuff talks to each other, is one of the big defining characteristics of performance on this type of machine.
It's much faster memory, and it's also a lot more memory, which is a big problem with the last generation.
Yeah, it's
16 times more memory. Faster memory, better integrated with GPU and CPU than with the previous system.
The equivalent on memory performance is, and I don't have the throughput in front of me. I should have. It's 176 terabytes a second, I think, or something like that. The difference is it's an order of magnitude faster. The difference is the speed between the GPU and the video card memory, and the speed between the CPU and the system memory. So by removing that memory bottleneck or pushing it back, it gives developers the opportunity to do things that would not otherwise be possible. For example, the CPU can write directly into memory used by the GPU and vice versa, which is something that you really can't do in a typical CPU GPU system without a normal PC without suffering severe performance problems.
And then from a development standpoint, developers can develop on very standard hardware.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is it also allows things that are memory bandwidth intensive, like, say, anti-aliasing and anisotropic filtering, to be essentially free when you have that kind of memory bandwidth. Those things are all memory bandwidth, fill rate limited, which is a function of memory bandwidth. So it's going to be really interesting. It should be a much easier platform for developers to build on. So hopefully that means we'll avoid the problems that we saw with things like Unreal Engine early in the last generation on PS3. And like Norm said, the amount of extra memory available here should make if you stayed and watched that press conference and saw the clip reels, and I assume that a lot of you guys watched the press conference, we won't recap that stuff. But some of those games, especially the open world game Watch Dogs, looked substantially better than a PC open world game than a current generation console open world game ported to PC, just because they're able to use more textures.
Things weren't streaming, geometry and textures weren't streaming in.
Yeah, they're able to use things like higher resolution displacement maps for things like cobblestones and bricks, so that stuff looks better, and they're using a higher quality, higher fidelity techniques to render that stuff. So it's good. Like, that's good. Volumetric fog, which is a big memory intensive thing to do, should look much more awesome if people actually use it. It's on a hardware from a pure power perspective. It's really interesting, and like you said, it's always disingenuous to compare these closed systems to comparable speeds and feeds on the PC side, because when you shift bottlenecks that are as crucial as things like memory bandwidth and
middleware,
speed between the CPU and the GPU, and middleware, it changes it makes it an apples to oranges comparison rather than an apples to apples comparison. So that's the hardware. That's the core hardware. It's going to have a hard drive. That's kind of obvious. They didn't mention anything about SSDs or flash memory or anything like that. I would guess
for cost, it'll probably be a regular hard drive.
It wouldn't surprise me if they put like a relatively small amount of flash on there for caching disks and stuff like that. But yeah, it's.
I mean, the coprocessors are the stuff that makes it really interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that you can sleep now, you don't have to boot up. I mean, because these consoles are theoretically always on, so a low power draw sleep mode where you update in the back and do things in the back while not running the full cores.
Yeah, I mean, because right now when the PS3 wakes up, if you're a Plus subscriber to download updates or whatever, it actually turns all the way on, and if it's in a cabinet or something like that, it's going to heat up the cabinet. So that's a big improvement. It seems like they've taken a couple of cues at least from tablets and phones and the instant on nature of that stuff, which is good. I don't think that stuff has to turn on faster than the TV can change channels, but as long as it's close, that's good. The dedicated H.264 encode, I think, is really interesting. Mm-hmm. I like watching game streams.
Similar to what NVIDIA has on their coupler chips, on the 600 series chips, and what they're using for Project Shield and streaming stuff to Project Shield. Because on a coupler chip, there is dedicated H.264 encode that they can tap into, so you just pull stuff from the memory buffer and encode it and throw it up as video. Yeah,
just in case you don't know, H.264 is the default kind of internet video standard right now, and it's used for everything from YouTube to Netflix to Apple.
Compression standard.
Yeah, it's the video compression standard of choice. It gives pretty high quality at a relatively low file size. And the challenge with it is it's a little bit demanding. Intel has similar technology on their post Sandy Bridge CPUs. But when you do hardware accelerated encode, it basically can happen in real time or faster. It's the thing that lets AirPlay work on Macs and iPads. So that's good. They're going to tie that to, it seems like Ustream right now. I would guess there'll probably be a Twitch TV tie-in before launch that they just have to work out the deal.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
There's prominent Ustream.
Maybe Sony is the Ustream channel and Xbox is the Twitch channel.
I would.
Yeah,
that could be it.
Yeah.
Would not be surprised.
The upshot is you'll be able to share. It seems like you'll be able to stream your play session to the internet, and you'll also have like a DVR functionality where
record last 10 seconds or
I think it's 10 minutes, 10 or 30 minutes. I've heard differing reports. But you'll be able to hit a button on the controller and then kind of go back and find if something weird happens in a game you're playing that you want to share with friends, you can hit the button and blast that up to YouTube or Ustream or whatever.
All right, so let's talk about the controller.
Okay.
Because this is how you interact with your game.
I didn't watch this part of the press conference at all because I was in the car. Okay.
New DualShock. Old DualShocks will not be compatible with the PS4.
Great.
This new DualShock is a little bit heavier because there's a little more stuff on it. Biggest change is that there is, instead of a start and select buttons are gone.
Okay.
Replaced by option button and touchscreen.
A touchscreen?
A 2-inch by 1-inch touchscreen.
What's the touchscreen for?
They didn't really demo any games that use it, but there is a small touchpad. It's very similar textured like the back of the Vita. On top of the controller, where you would normally have your start select buttons.
Is it in the middle? Like it's middle square?
No, it's a rectangle, 2-inch by 1-inch.
Okay.
So it's thumb accessible.
Okay. That's a real weird place to put that.
It's the top. It's not a displayable screen. It's just a sensor.
Yeah.
And then
so it's just it's like a touchpad, not even a screen. Yeah.
I don't think it's a screen. I think it's I think it's just a touchpad. At least from what I saw in the photos.
Do you think this stuff? Do you think it's far enough out since this isn't until holiday of this year? Is this still subject to change?
The only photos they've shown of hardware is of controller. And the new camera.
Okay.
So I think controller looks pretty finalized. On the back of the controller, there's a light that kind of looks like it's an upside down triangle, and it can change colors to indicate players.
Do you think it's to work with move style?
I don't think it's to work like move style. It's more like indicator.
I assume it's still going to have accelerometer and gyroscope and stuff in there.
Yeah,
though.
I think so.
And rumble, since they settled that lawsuit.
And the triggers are now concave, not convex.
Oh, thank goodness!
They are Xbox style.
Even if they made that a regional thing and the Japanese ones were concave, because I know that some markets prefer the concave. I really I love the PS3 controller except for the triggers.
Your finger slips off.
Yeah, it's difficult to hold. But it's still the 2 sticks at the bottom design, not an off-axis one.
Nope, 2 sticks at the bottom. It'll be a new controller that is for the PS4 only.
Did it look like it was internal battery? Is it still going to be something you have to plug into the console?
There was a USB.
A mini USB?
Micro USB port.
Oh, micro, not mini.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's micro.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested. The one thing I don't like about the PS4 controller is that you have to plug it in to charge it or buy one of those stupid docks. I like the ability to take my rechargeable batteries and plug them into Xbox controllers. That's cool. It's still Bluetooth, I assume. I can't imagine they'd back away from that at this point.
And they have, they really want to decrease latency. And there's also a dedicated share button.
Oh, yeah.
So dedicated share button is how you actually, it's a button you press then to share, to start setting your video up to your Ustream account.
And I assume that's so you don't miss something out of the buffer. Like if it's constantly saving video footage on the drive or on some RAM or something in the system, then that gives you a faster way to do it. So you don't have to drill through menus, basically.
Yeah,
which is a good idea.
You just press the button, and I guess if it's set up, and I imagine because a lot of the stuff they said was still aspirational. You press the button, and whatever account you've signed up for on Ustream will just start broadcasting from your PS3.
Okay.
Which is theoretically awesome because then you can watch that on any device.
Yeah.
Anyone who follows you will get notification, and you can watch it on PC, and it will make the idea of like a live stream, gaming live stream from consoles, which is very difficult now without dedicated hardware, HTC4 encoders like those the Blackmagic boxes, just built into the system.
Yeah. Well, there's some games that do that now. There are some games that'll let you stream to YouTube or Twitch or something like that. But yeah, this is a big change. They're also finally adding a mono headset port on the controller, which is good.
And part of that is because they want you to be able to play games and let people provide feedback to you, and for whether it's cooperative play or just crowd playing. So you can do things whether it's one-on-one or if you need help in the game, let someone take over your game, give you the shoot that guy tip in the back of your ear, or you can get on-screen messages from your Ustream followers.
Yeah. I'm interested in seeing this in person. I'm hoping that they'll have that on the floor at E3. I gotta imagine it'll be on the floor at E3 this year. Yeah.
I mean, the big thing at E3 will be whether Microsoft will want to. I don't think Microsoft's going to announce before E3.
Yeah.
But they want to own the E3 conversation.
Yeah.
And big media, mainstream media always looks to E3, looks for the one big story at E3, and Microsoft wants Xbox to be the big story at E3.
Yeah. They showed a couple of PlayStation Eye. It seems like they're going to add a Kinect style, maybe not using the same technology, but using two stereo cameras to do the same thing, basically. 85-degree
cameras.
Oh, that's good.
Overlapping for stereoscopic.
And I assume higher resolution than the existing Kinect, because God, please. They showed a couple of kind of cool demos using Move controllers. So the Media Molecule guys, who are the Little Big Planet team, or the people who developed Little Big Planet, showed a kind of puppeteering demo with the Move that looked just super rad. There were a couple of other things. There was what was very clearly a static render path video that may have been rendered real time, but was not possible to not interactive at all. Couldn't have possibly been interactive. They showed a lot of ambient occlusion lighting, which is a kind of high-end PC graphics thing you see in games that are typically PC only currently. So that's
yeah. It's if you put your hand to a light and the light bounces off the edge of your hands and goes through your skin a little
kind
bit.
of halos a little bit on the edges.
Yeah. Rim lighting plus.
The interesting thing to me about console generations is that you see. In the early part of the generation, you see developers trying a whole bunch of different stuff, and then they figure out what works. So in the Xbox PS2 GameCube generation, people used a lot of fog. If you recall, you'd have some games where the fog would go out, 12 feet, and then things would pop up out of it. And they do that to reduce increase the level of detail you can show in the area that's visible. In the last generation, they kind of tessellated stuff down and use depth of field focus effects to get the same effect in a little less obvious way. I think that the lighting changes are what we'll see this go around, but we won't know for a year or two probably. Anything else you want to talk about on the demo front? I thought the demos
the
were
puppets and the
Square Enix thing was super pre-rendered.
That was last year's demo.
It was the E3 demo. It was an E3 PC demo.
Jonathan Blow.
I missed that part. I didn't get to see it.
Jonathan Blow came out. People started freaking out if they knew who he was. I'm sure millions or hundreds of thousands of people watching online did not know who he was, and he looked like he did not want to be there.
Jonathan Blow doesn't give a fuck.
He gave his presentation. Basically, he couldn't say a word. He couldn't say a sentence without being passive aggressive against all the games that were shown before his game.
I love Jonathan.
And
Blow.
then in describing his game, he described his game in a way. and you could see him seething almost because he was probably thinking, I'm describing my game, which cannot be described, should not be described, and will only be described right now in a way that you could not understand it and should not understand it. And then watch a trailer for this game.
I watched the incomprehensible clip reel.
And that confused everyone, and I'm sure made him not happy.
So Jeff and Ryan and Patrick went and played
The Witness,
the pre-graphics version of because the way Jonathan Blow typically builds games is he makes what is essentially like an engineering. He builds the game out and then adds art afterwards.
If you don't know, Jonathan Blow is the guy who made Braid.
Yeah, and was featured in Indie Game the Movie among other places.
The Yoda of indie gaming.
Yeah, he was the crusty old guy on the hill. What Patrick and Ryan said was the game makes no sense at all when you first sit and play it, and 5 minutes later, after you sit down and kind of muddle with the puzzles a little bit, then it becomes very clear what's going on.
Right, not something.
But it's something you have to experience.
Not something to demo on stage, and given a few minutes to talk about.
Yeah. If you want to know more about that, they talked about it in the Bombcast a few months ago. Just go find that and listen to it.
He showed this demo, which is the first time he showed it. Sure, whatever. It's PS3, PS4 console exclusive, but I'm sure it'll be on PC as well.
It looked like I think PS3 too.
Or PlayStation console exclusive, and then the reason he did that because he had such a bad experience with Xbox with updates for Braid. If PlayStation wanted to, it was clearly like a prestige move.
Mm-hmm.
If PlayStation wanted to, like a fuck you Microsoft move, but if they wanted to really show off like support for indie developers, they really needed like a Super Meat Boy style developer, a game that's way more accessible, at least, and something that you can show on screen, and it has had success.
I guarantee you will see that at E3. I mean, I think I was surprised by how many people were watching this press conference live on the different streams.
Tons.
Millions.
Yeah.
I felt like. I think that Jonathan Blow was there for other indie developers, not for people who play games. Like, I think they put him out there so that all the guys who are making indie games and thinking I'm going to put them on Greenlight and get them out on Steam now feel like, oh, if Jonathan Blow is willing to put this on the PS4, then I am too. I don't know. The couple of other small things. They're not going to do backwards compat
At all?
They didn't mention backwards compatibility, and they said that there's no hardware backwards compatibility.
Definitely no hardware backwards compatibility.
Which would given, just to be clear, given the technical the under the hood changes in the GPU and CPU of this machine, it would be a substantial software undertaking, or they'd have to just do what they did with the early PS3s and put a PS2 and a PS1 inside that machine,
yes.
which is crazy.
They stopped doing 2 years after the PS3 came out,
even before that in some cases. And that is probably both a cost and a board space decision, because unless this box is going to be huge, the 8 gigs of DDR3 come in 512 megabit modules, I think. So that's a fairly ridiculous number of.
Plus they look at PSN, they look at Xbox Arcade and the Wii Store, and they know that people will buy old games again. And so the way they're doing that with old games in the store now is all much of it is through Gakai.
Well, but I mean, the other thing about Sony is I think that their backwards catalog is much like if you look at Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, I don't think that theirs is the best of the back catalogs.
And they've not done a great job of bringing old games onto new platforms.
They've done a good job with PS2 forward games. I
can't wait for those classic PlayStation games to hit Android.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, do I really want to like the early PlayStation games are early 3D games, and I really think that those haven't aged as well as say 16-bit 2D games. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. I mean, if you look at Tomb Raider 1 today, it is not. You have to squint to realize that that's a girl.
But that's the least of its problems.
Well, yeah. Controls were bad, cameras were bad. Like,
I don't want to create. Don't want to play Crash Bandicoot on PS4.
Yeah,
the original.
Yeah.
But for the PSN, and they really talked about Gakai.
Yeah.
And streaming.
So Gakai was the on-stream on live competitor, basically streaming video games over the internet.
Dave Perry.
Yeah. From Messiah.
Mm-hmm. And Earthworm Jim.
Yes.
And Gakai had, before they were bought by Sony, the service was relatively limited compared to OnLive. and really used to show game demos. So
But it seemed like it actually worked.
it worked, and then the best case of it working, if you wanted to try it out back then, was the Mass Effect 3 demo.
Right.
You could load it up in a browser and play Mass Effect 3, like a little bit of it, or the full game. I think the full game even. Before then, they were spot up by PlayStation.
Yeah.
By Sony. And what they said in a press conference was that their intention was that everything in the PSN store you would be able to sample using streaming technology before buying it. And time-based sampling has worked traditionally.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that gives you. I mean, demos are important, but I don't like downloading a 12 gig SimCity beta / demo.
Yeah, so you just stream.
it's a bummer.
And we talked about the co-processors, and the PS4 games will let you download and start playing before the full game's done.
Right now, it's important to note that some of the promises they made about the service have since been described as aspirational.
Yes, with all this cloud stuff.
So it's stuff that they want to do, but maybe aren't sure exactly how it's going to work.
And
quite
they
yet.
said as much in the announcement too, with their back catalog. They said eventually they would hope that all of their library would be emulated online or put online to stream over Gakkai. And they never said anything about pricing, whether it would be a subscription service, whether it would be a la carte or anything like that.
I have to look at what they've done with PlayStation Plus in the last year, since E3 last year with the instant game collection stuff, and I think catalog stuff is a perfect fit for that. Because if you're paying $60 a year, like I'm never going to pay for Crash Bandicoot or
They would want you to.
Well, they'd rather me pay $60 a year than pay $3 for a 10-year-old game.
$10 for those 10-year-old games. $5 for 10-year-old games.
Nintendo's bananas for charging $10 for 5-year-old games.
People are paying. HD remixes.
Anyway, like as a value add for a subscription service, that makes a ton of sense for me. Even if it's just discounted version, even if you get half off on the game.
Will let you get the demos, all the demos you want.
I'm not interested in paying for demos.
Well, I think
it's not the way I roll.
You pay for demos on Xbox Live.
No.
Do you pay for gold?
Yeah, but I pay for that for Netflix and that business.
You pay for Netflix.
I think, just to be clear, I think Xbox Live is a terrible value proposition too.
If you want to get those demos, you're paying for demos.
You know what I'm talking about, the instant game. Like right now, if you pay for PlayStation Plus, you get a copy of Infamous 2 that's yours as long as you continue to subscribe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the kind of semi-Netflixy model of that as long as you continue to pay for this, you get access to that content is totally the right way to go about
the reason that
monetizing that content. Yeah.
They made you pay for the game.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're talking about a game that's 10 years old and they've already squeezed all the blood out of that turnip they're going to get, if they can use that as an incentive to get you to pay $60 a year.
You think they've squeezed all the blood that they can get.
Fair enough. This is a larger philosophical
remix,
conversation.
Up the graphics.
Well, that's a different thing. HD Remix is a different thing. Like when Nintendo goes through and 3Di's Ocarina of Time, I don't think that's probably a $50 game, but I think it's probably a $30 game. Same thing for when Sony did Shadows of the Colossus and Eco in that HD remix. I'm totally fine with that.
I think Sony's looking at Microsoft and seeing that they can get away with millions of people paying $60 a year for this access, and they want to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if their strategy is to not lock online play behind that, then it's a good thing for them. Especially since it seems like they've taken the lessons on the controller and have the headset, which everybody. I mean, the headset on the 360 and the way that just plugs in and it's still wireless and the wire is connected to your hands is fantastic. Works great.
So no backwards compatibility at launch, at least no
hardware.
So you'll be keeping your PS3, and people buying PS4s will have PS3s and PS4s. And two big PlayStation machines, assuming the PlayStation 4 is around the same size.
I'm buying futures and HDMI switchers.
And yes, we saw you tweet that, and I think it's not a big deal. I think eventually PS3 will get phased out. It's another Blu-ray player.
So I bought a PS3 that had software back compat. I bought the Metal Gear Solid one.
I think it's the one we all bought.
Yeah, because it was the first time it was a reasonable price for a PS3, and I was kind of interested.
$500 for the
It was 500. It was still expensive when I think about it.
PS3 with the bigger hard drive, but you get MGS.
And I think you got 2 controllers, but maybe you only got one. I can't remember.
One controller.
The upshot was I bought that because I was afraid that they were going to go lose back compat, and I wanted to be able to play
I did not care
PS2 games.
About back compat at all.
I put PS2 games into that machine twice.
Yeah, do not care at that point.
Yeah.
You're just playing new games.
That was the first bundle that came with the vibration controller. Prior to that, they didn't have it because of the iMotion thing. Yeah, but I don't think back compat matters.
It was different also because back then, I think you could also play PS2 games on PC.
You mean with that Bleem thing? I think that was already gone by then.
Okay, that was just PS1.
Yeah, PS1 and Dreamcast.
Yeah, didn't play PS2 games much at all on PS3.
I put Katamari in a couple of times, and then I put Eco and Shadows of the Colossus in, and then the HD remake came out.
Scale really that well.
Yeah, I mean that is my point. If they're not going to render at the higher resolution, then I'd rather play them on a PC.
You want your brain. You want the experience that you thought you had.
Yeah.
And in many cases, the way to get that, unless you're really hardcore retro, is to get an upconverted version.
Yeah.
An HD remix.
The thing I will say is that the Wii, the back compat on the Wii is and the Wii U is a bummer because I was hoping that I'd be able to play Skyward Sword at HD resolution. Turns out they're probably going to resell that game to me as an HD remix at some point in the future.
Yeah. It's fine to keep old consoles around.
I mean, the thing is, you put them in a box in the garage, and you pull them out when you want to play.
Old consoles and put them all in one box, and make sure you keep all the power cables.
Yeah, well, the PS3 power cable is easy. It's just a normal PC three-pronger. They said they're going to allow used games. There was a lot of rumor going into this
used
about
games will be fine. No,
about
used
NFC.
GameStop is not in danger.
I think GameStop's in danger, but not because of no used games on the PS4. And that's that. I mean, that's pretty much it. I think I don't think we missed anything huge. I'm sure people are going to say that we did. I think that. I mean, the larger question is: do you think that there's still a place in the world for consoles in a post iPhone iPad world? You know, console, phone, tablet.
And I think they're borrowing less from iPhone and iPad with PS4 than they are from the stuff that makes PC gaming really great.
Well, and made the Xbox pretty strong last generation.
Well, same with Xbox, but mostly PC with this sharing and streaming stuff.
Yeah, everything requires trophies.
And
yeah, they have to have trophies from the beginning. It's great. I think. I mean.
Well, what we saw less of though in the presentation was games that really broke the mold of your classic PlayStation game.
Well, and we also didn't see a whole lot of services stuff. They didn't talk about things like Netflix and Amazon and, and video streaming services. A little bit, but not a ton.
Whole big
it was like a slide.
You know, streaming services and everything from Sony's Love Music, Play Music, whatever the Sony
iHeart Music,
and to Netflix and Amazon.
But the thing that's interesting about new consoles is in order for them to take off, they have to sell a fair number of them to people who are willing to pay for them without a whole lot of games available. Because, I mean, there's no reason to buy what I assume is going to be a $400 machine at minimum.
I think $400 has to be the price that the good console is at.
There's maybe a $300 or $350 that's kind of gimped. I actually, looking at supply stuff and the supply on the DDR5 memory, I wouldn't surprise me if they only make one SKU so they avoid the Nintendo problem where there were a ton of the less desirable white Wii U's and none of the black Wii U's.
For a PlayStation, that makes sense. Well, I don't know. I don't know how well Xbox the arcade version sold.
It sold really well, but that was you mean the original arcade version?
Yeah, the one that you really couldn't do anything unless you bought a hard drive.
Yeah.
I think that people are still very price conscious, and $400 is a lot to ask for the holidays when you have lots of options.
Right. When you're looking at a 2-year upgrade cycle on phones and tablets and stuff like that, a lot of times for a lot of people, I think that the reason the Xbox 360 arcade version sold really well is that there were a shitload of hard drives in the channel, and the only way to get an Xbox for a long time was that you had to buy the arcade version. Like really? the premium ones were really hard to get at launch for 3 months.
$400 is still a lot to ask of anyone, but if you're approaching this and if you're I'm more interested in the PS4 than I was in the PS3 at launch.
Yeah.
And PS3 had a Blu-ray player.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't a lot of... Remember, at PS3 at launch, the Blu-ray HDDV thing was still going on, though. So, there was no... Blu-ray was not a sure thing at the PS3 launch.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm really...
Well, there is nothing in this PS4 so far that makes it double as something else. So, you bought the PS2 because it was a DVD player also. You got that big bonus.
They don't
PS3,
have a crutch this time.
And it was it's still my Blu-ray player at home.
Yeah.
And PS4, I'm sure will play Blu-rays.
It does.
But what's the
crutch?
What's the crutch?
Yeah. They
streaming. And you know what? If they get streaming right, and it's probably too late for Microsoft in their Xbox designs and Durango's designs to put that in as a one button push
I would be stunned if Microsoft doesn't have a. It's not too late for them to change controller. They can always relabel
but
the
they probably
controller.
couldn't do a dedicated H.264 processor and get
I'm
services
sure it has a
tied in.
dedicated H.264 processor.
And you know what? If
I mean, at this point, an H.264
like-
encoder is so cheap, there's no reason not
okay,
to do it.
It is 3.5 months away.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it will be there, but the condition in which we see it at E3
Yeah.
will let us know whether it was a reactionary move.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the danger of going first is that they give Microsoft time to pivot, especially this early. The thing that they do have going for them is they can wait to announce price until afterwards. And, you know, I think it's unlikely, but it's not out of the question that they would drop the amount of memory and drop the price if Microsoft comes out with a very aggressive price on the next Xbox.
No, they said
Xbox
they
420.
said 8 gigs.
Specs, all specs subject to change.
They made a
Norman.
big deal out of that.
I understand that.
I think developers will be very unhappy.
Well, what if developers look at it and say, look, you know, it turns out with the super high-speed RAM, we don't need as much. It's
But
less
think
important.
It's going to be another 5+ year.
No, I know.
console
It's a long generation.
They're really thinking forward thinking.
I don't know. It was an interesting press conference. It went on.
It was a lot better than I thought it would be in terms of hardware.
Yeah. I mean,
and services. I mean, lots of great surprising things. More than just, hey, we're doing Move Plus.
well, and the thing I would reiterate is with the high speed, with what is insanely high speed memory attached directly to both the GPU and the CPU, because I believe that in these APUs they share the memory controller, right? The memory controller is at least in the PC versions, the memory controller is shared between the GPU and the CPU, which allows for interesting stuff to happen. The opportunity to do novel stuff that's not really possible across a PCI Express bus and a PC is definitely there, and is it's worth being excited about. So yeah, that's PS4, at least what we know so far. Do you want to roll on and talk about Titan some? Because NVIDIA rolled out their new $1,000
Video card.
Holy shit!
Well, they had $1,000 video card.
I know, but nobody buys $1,000 video cards.
No, people do buy $1,000
Who?
video cards.
Who buys
rich people?
Oh man, I wish
You
I
can
had
buy 3 of them. So last week,
I could trade my car and get 3 video cards.
your car's only worth $3,000.
The Sable? It's a Sable, Norm.
Oh my god,
The second car.
that's a good trade.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a win. Sorry, Gina. We're back to one car. You're stuck at home all day. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last week,
Maybe
we,
5 video
we talked
cards.
about NVIDIA not resting on their laurels. We had actually we'd taken the briefing, so we knew that they would be coming out this week with the GTX Titan, and it is undeniably, based on specs and benchmarks now, the fastest single GPU card ever made. It is based on...
Oh, ever made is bullshit because it's always the fastest. The new one is always the fastest one ever made.
Significantly.
But yeah, is it like 5% faster? Or is it like 30% faster?
It's as fast as the GTX 690,
Which was a dual GPU
which is a
board.
dual Kepler two 680s clock down, and it's based on the Titan, which was in their supercomputer architecture.
Mm-hmm.
They're making very, very limited quantities of this. It is for,
And they're manufacturing it themselves, right?
and they're manufacturing themselves, so they just sell the cards to OEMs who can put stickers on them and then reskin them and then sell them out the channel. It's for people like Robin Williams, who says, "I want the best gaming PC.
Yeah.
Here's $5,000. Buyer, manager, go buy me."
Make me something cool.
And then the guy goes to Falcon Northwest
yeah.
and maxes out everything, and in maxing out everything, gets
This is what he
3
gets.
GTX Titans.
It's got to be really loud.
No,
Really?
it's not loud.
How is it not loud?
Kepler was so.
Kepler was kind of loud.
No, Kepler 5 series.
Oh, my 580 is hella loud.
Yeah, you're 580 because you're in Fermi.
Yeah.
Fermi was loud.
That was the first of their GPU processors, right? The first
Fermi
real one.
was bigger process, and Fermi was clocked really high, super loud, and kind of remember with the 500 series,
Mm-hmm.
the GeForce 5000 series,
Yeah.
was not very good, and 6000 series was great. After that,
So you're talking about the
Way
DX8,
back.
DX9
Yeah,
transition. Yeah.
Kepler has been great great performer and actually relatively quiet.
Yeah, I'm super happy. I mean, just to be clear, that card's like 2 or 3 years old at this point, and I'm still super happy with it.
And they both AMD and NVIDIA have speed management to clock up based on TDP.
Like speed step or whatever.
Yeah, it's PowerTune on AMD side and PowerTune on NVIDIA side. And
it doesn't matter. Basically, they adjust clock speeds based on performance requirements, right?
No, based on TDP.
Okay.
So when you say that the max temperature and watt pull of card is X number of watts, if a game doesn't need that much, then the software automatically, the drivers will clock it up and overclock so you reach your maximum 250 watts.
Oh, so it's even aware that, say, Saints Row the Third is less demanding than Skyrim, and will clock up the card for Skyrim, but not for Saints Row.
So you get higher frame rates, but then you're using your card at full power, and you can disable this obviously, and it'll scale down the same way. So your clock speed is managed by your TDP. In Titan and Kepler moving forward, your clock speed is not managed by TDP; it's managed by temperature.
Oh, so it's actually measured.
Its internal card temperature is measured. So when you say you have a set temperature of 85 degrees or something, if you're playing a game like Skyrim and it doesn't drive up the card to 85 degrees, then it will clock speed up
until it hits 85 degrees.
Until you hit 85 degrees. Because
Celsius,
85
right?
Celsius, because that's the point at which the fan starts kicking in.
Oh.
And so you can set it so the fan never kicks in.
Ooh.
And the fan never ramps up. The fan's always spinning.
Man, I would
ramps up linearly.
If I could get something that performs like my card when the fan's ramped up without ramping up the fan.
Without ramping up the
that's
fan.
magic.
$1,000.
It's not worth $1,000.
Triple SLI.
I'd just put the machine in the other room. That's knock a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
It's much easier.
And that's why with water cooling, and there are water cooling blocks set to this, you can really jack up this card.
Yeah, I gotta imagine that if you put 3 of these in a machine with a big water cooling kit and a radiator, you can do awful, terrible things. When is it out? It's out now?
It's out now.
Buy
now.
Benchmarks. We didn't get a card.
No, they didn't give us a $1,000 video card. It's for the super premium market.
Yeah, we're not the super premium market. Do you want to talk about HTC or you want to keep going on?
HTC, big new phone.
Big being the operative word.
Well, no, how big was the HTC One X?
5 inches, 4.5 inches. It's huge.
A little over 4.5 inches.
Bigger than Jesus.
Same thing as HTC One. HTC, this is their flagship phone for this year. It's the HTC One, and it's a 4.7-inch 1080p phone, as all flagship phones are now 1080p. Giant, I think 2,300 watt hour or milliamp hour battery.
So it's basically like an iPad 1, half of an iPad 1 battery in a phone.
And
it's aluminum back.
It looks like.
Oh, you think it's just aluminumized?
There's a aluminum unibody. It looks like an iPhone 5.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I appreciate that they're going out and using metal instead of plastic for Android phones.
It has the same chamfered aluminum edges.
I like the chamfered.
The ones on the front.
Well, the One X had kind of chamfered plastic edges.
So instead of plastic on the One X, it's all aluminum. On the back, you have the same ridges, the same cuts on the top and the bottom, except on the back of the
iPhone 5. For the antennas,
splitting for the antennas, but it goes all the way around now. So
they're going to get sued.
But it's like it has some design elements from the One X also in that it's a curve on the back.
Is it edge-to-edge screen?
I do not believe it is edge-to-edge screen.
Okay.
And has your standard Gorilla Glass and all that stuff.
I mean, HTC makes nice phones, and I think their version of Android is the least offensive of them all.
A 1.7 gigahertz Qualcomm processor.
Yeah, so they're going after Samsung. I mean, the thing that they've fucked up in the last 4 years, is that they had an early lead in Android phones, and they gave it up to Samsung with the Galaxy S series.
This is a stab at the GS3/GS4, and we all anticipate GS4 being announced next month for release in April.
Yeah,
and that's going to be a 1080p phone. I mean, this is the year of 1080p Android phones.
Yeah, with
big batteries, big chips. Samsung with their own chip, Qualcomm their own chip, Tegra 4, and battery life is going to be another big thing this year.
So when I was jacked up on morphine in the hospital, I was using my phone a lot because I didn't want to lift the iPad, and the thing I noticed on the phone, especially even on the iPhone 5, is that the response time on the screen is not particularly awesome. It's
on the 5. On the iPhone 5.
on the iPhone 5 and on the iPad, on the Mini especially, but on the iPhone 5 even, like when you scroll, there is it's not frame rate hitching. It seems like it's ghosting on the panel. And because I've been thinking about what's the next thing that the phone manufacturers can push, since we're reaching the limits of resolution, human capacity to distinguish resolution improvements. And I think that response time is probably, Apple's already gone into the gamut stuff and is talking about true representation and stuff like that. I think we'll see refresh rate as the next front in pixel response time rather as the next front in phones. We should talk to Ray about that. So it would be a good conversation to have with him. Do we want to talk about the Pixel? We're running a little short on.
Let's HTC One. Well, the big thing also is the camera. So just like the Pure View, just like Nokia has Pure View on their camera, which is they're crazy.
It's like multi-sampling for pictures,
exactly.
Basically.
They have this on HTC's phone. It's called Ultra Pixel, and basically they have the same size sensor as what's in a normal camera, except it's only 4 megapixels. So the pixels are bigger. Same physical size, except only 4 million pixels. Therefore, you get
so you have less noise and better light pickup.
Better light pickup. 4 megapixels is totally fine for images you're going to post on your Instagram, but theoretically they will look better.
And actually, on a phone, I think smaller resolution isn't necessarily a bad thing when you're talking about limited storage space on the phone and stuff like that.
And limited bandwidth to upload stuff, because everything's uploaded in less than 1080p anyway. Also, they have this thing called Zoe, or Zoetrope or something, where if you take a picture or shoot video, automatically save a 1080p few second clip, Vine style, so your thumbnails are all videos, and then you go into the video and pull your pictures out of that. So it's Nokia has something similar with, and BlackBerry has something similar also.
It's to let you get better pictures
of moving stuff.
Yeah, moving stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm interested in what's happening with Android phones again in a way that I hadn't been.
The big problem with this one, all the stuff, is that they're all Jelly Bean 4.12, not even 4.2.
Yeah.
And if Samsung announces a phone in March and HTC has their big Android phone for the year now, and Mobile World Congress is coming up and everyone's announcing their phones, I/O is going to come out, and then we're going to see the next Android.
But it won't come out until the fall or winter even. I mean, the new releases typically are every 6 months, but we had the small one already, and we'll see the big one in the fall, right?
And we'll probably see the next Nexus phone out in the fall.
Is it LTE? And what networks?
Yeah.
Is GSM for the HTC phone?
I'm not sure which networks.
Okay. Google rolled out their Chromebook. This happened while we were on the plane yesterday. Maybe while we were traveling yesterday. It's ridiculous.
So if you remember earlier in the month, there was I think it wasn't even a Russian firm, some marketing firm. A YouTube video went up online. It wasn't even YouTube. It was some other video hosting site, but it showed a commercial for a product called the Chromebook Pixel, about a high-density laptop made by Google, not a partnered laptop company, not like a Samsung. And I thought the commercial looked real, but because it was a leak, everyone said it was fake. And then if you went to the website where it was theoretically hosted, it looked like some big marketing scam or some viral video some guy just made, because it's a very Apple-like ad.
Yeah.
Turns out that Chromebook Pixel is a real product, and Google announced it yesterday, and it's on sale now. $1,300 Chromebook.
That's ridiculous.
Let's start off with that, which is the price of higher price than a Ultrabook, perfectly good Ultrabook like Lenovo Yoga, and about the same price. I think $100 less than your MacBook Pro with Retina 13-inch.
Yeah.
Now it does have a 2560 by 1700 resolution touchscreen, 3:2 aspect ratio, not 16:10.
Okay.
So you can use Chrome, touch optimized Chrome. Like for example, on the Yoga, I used Touch Chrome, which I thought was not as good as Touch IE. Core i5 on the inside. 32 gigs of.
So it's a real laptop running a fake OS.
Yes, with 32 gigs of storage.
How much is usable?
Well, because it's Chrome OS.
Yeah, so it's probably really small, right?
It's all on the web.
I can't, I look at this thing and I don't understand what the
5 hours of battery life.
That's it?
5 hours. That's what they say. So if you take the 20% off, probably
I bet
4 hours.
I bet it's actually 5 hours. I gotta believe
Not with this.
that
Think of that screen. Think of.
It looks really nice. It's a really pretty machine.
I wish Microsoft made it.
I wish it ran a real OS. I wish it had Windows 8 and a touchscreen. God, help me. I can't believe.
It does have touchscreen.
Okay, well.
You wish that it was Windows 8.
Yeah, Windows 8.
So I want to see if people.
Of course, if it was Windows 8, it would have like 4 gigabytes of space free. So probably that's not a good thing. $1,300. That's ridiculous. It's a netbook with a real processor.
Well, it's not.
It's a browser.
It's an internet book. It's a browser.
It's a browser.
It's a browser. You're paying $1,300 for a web browser
for the physical incarnation of a browser.
Yes.
They're not going to sell. They're going to sell fewer of these than they did at the Qs.
I think they're going to sell more of these than they did at the
You're
Qs.
out of your mind.
They gave away more Qs than they sold.
They didn't sell any Qs. They gave them all away.
Yeah.
If you pre-ordered a Q, you got one for free because of your optimism. They didn't charge people for the Q.
People?
No.
What?
No.
It was all free?
All free.
Oh, wow.
We really messed up by not ordering a Q.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good thing it's Google flush with cash.
Yeah.
Their stock's over $800.
Speaking of Google, hey, what would you do if you had Google Glass, Norm?
If I had Google Glass?
If you had Google Glass, what would you use it for?
That's a very good question.
Uncomfortable moments in the men's room?
My life is all about uncomfortable moments.
I know.
Every time I go into the men's room, I not only have uncomfortable moments, but I fantasize. To get out of my uncomfortable moments, I fantasize of creating a TV show.
Don't fantasize in the men's room.
I fantasize about creating a TV show, Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm style, about uncomfortable moments in the men's room.
Did you like it's a series of uncomfortable conversations in the men's room? We could do a video series on this. Two stalls.
Conversations do not happen, but it's all about what's internal monologue of what goes on in the men's room. This could be a video series.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about this anymore. This could be a Friday show.
I would not use Google Glass. If I had Google Glass, it would not be to make uncomfortable moments in the men's room even more uncomfortable.
Hey, what's that? Yeah, no.
I don't know. I don't really have a real use for Google Glass.
Would you wear Google Glass if you had a set of Google Glasses? No.
I don't think so.
So they released a video showing what seemed like actual footage from the glasses.
It was all a montage of because Google Glass is being beta tested right now by Google employees and other people
and some outside friends.
And all that video is now, or a bunch of that video is cut together in this promo reel.
That was a produced video, just to be clear. It was a produced video.
Produced, yes, but I mean, the clips were short. That's why they could edit it down.
Yeah.
To only the best moments. And the top right-hand corner, that was fake overlay to what you theoretically see.
Yeah.
Wearing Google Glass. And
the idea is to give you the experience, give people watching on YouTube the experience of Google Glasses, wearing Google Glasses.
Yes.
And they showed things like skydiving and handling snakes and
running
playing
marathons and
kendo and It was a bunch of stuff that I never do. I'd probably just take pictures of the baby and the dog.
I go paintballing.
Oh, paintballing would be good.
Yeah.
Actually, paintballing might be a real expensive mistake. So the takeaway from this is
for a sucker, you can't paintball.
Well, you get shot in the Google Glasses, you might be real sad.
Everyone would be wearing Google Glasses.
Oh,
that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be good. And you hang out with everybody on your team so that you can see what they see.
Yeah,
it's like aliens shit there.
There's Overlord watching everyone.
Yeah,
and then seeing
what was the guy's name in Aliens?
Which one? Aliens.
Aliens, the sergeant, the lieutenant, the simulation, 48 in simulation, 1 actual combat drop.
I forget. Which actor?
The lieutenant, not the sergeant, but the rookie lieutenant that got knocked in the head and then Vasquez almost shot.
Not Michael Biehn.
Gorman.
Okay.
Gorman. The video is really compelling. The video is a tease.
I would not say really compelling.
How
much is Google Glass?
I'm not
for a developer kit.
What I'm saying is setting aside the insane cost of the developer kit.
Okay.
The promise of camera there, ready to go all the time, is very interesting to me. And I think the idea of ambient information in a way that actually works rather than having to hold up your phone and do the stupid thing where you aim the phone around is kind of interesting as well.
Makes you a great mugging target.
It does make you a good mugging target because clearly you have more money than sense.
Does it counter the iPhone mugging? Because people who wear white earbuds are targets of muggings because muggers think that they have iPhones.
Yeah.
And iPhones sell higher on that secondary market. And so iPhone users get mugged a lot more than Android users. Mm-hmm. But if you're wearing Google Glass, they know that you have an Android.
Yeah.
phone.
So it's reverse.
So
Here's the thing.
Does that counter the mugger's logic?
You know the secret of do you know how you fix cell phone muggings entirely? Australia did it years ago.
Yeah, you put.
You can't once you report a phone stolen to the carrier,
The phone is
it's
not
dead.
usable. Yeah.
It no longer works.
Right, but you know what? People who buy secondary phones don't know that.
Well, they would very quickly. You'd make one mistake, and then it would never happen again.
It's killed the entire secondary.
The market would fall apart for stolen phones, which would solve the problem entirely. Same thing could happen for if Google Glass muggings become a problem. Google lets you report the glass is stolen, and then they're dead forever, and nobody mugs people anymore.
Anyway, they still have not explained. You know, they demoed some of the voice activated instruction stuff and the gesture based stuff, but they never still haven't
The
explained
nav stuff. They showed some nav.
how it will integrate with your phone in your pocket. I mean,
It's
the phone in
unclear.
your pocket will be the processor driving it.
It seems like the phone in the pocket may be the processor driving it. It may just be the internet connection even. Reports are that battery life on the dev kits is pretty grim. There's a rumor that Warby Parker has been contracted to design
They make glasses.
fashion glasses for glasses wearers who want Google Glass, which I think is really interesting. And if you didn't go to Google I/O and weren't able to pre-order a kit last year, there is a way to, if you go to the Google Glass project site, you can there's a contest to enter yourself to win an opportunity to pay $1,500 to get a pair of Google Glasses all your own in the dev kit trial phase, along with the people who went to I/O. So, and basically you have to tweet or post a Google Plus message that says, if I had Google Glasses, here's what I'd do. So yeah, that's out there and is a thing you can do. Norm is disappoint. Other things that are crazy, some guys that reached out to us a few months ago, and I can't wait to see this in action. I think they're going to come to San Francisco in the not too distant future, have built a pen that has basically a 3D print head in it. So you can...
It's extruder pen.
It's an extruder pen. They're calling it a 3D printer pen, which is,
doodler.
I think, a little disingenuous, but it is a thing that you can use to write with plastic, basically. And then you can take those 2D constructions and attach them to each other with the heated end of the pen.
I think it's going to be a big failure. I mean, it's already a huge success on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's a massive Kickstarter
Kickstarter success, but I think people will be very disappointed with what they get.
You know what I'm excited about it for more than anything is repairing plastic stuff.
Filling in the holes with ABS plastic of stuff that you're going to use it for that much. It's going to be glue. But
here's the thing.
You can use that more than you're going to draw the Eiffel Tower.
I think you might not draw the Eiffel Tower. I think that the idea of taking 2D stuff and using it to convert 2D stuff. You know, we talked about this with Adam. The idea that if you can convert 2D stuff into 3D shapes, then you can build pretty much anything with any material. You just have to learn the specifics of the material.
The best case scenario demos they had, photos of things they've built with that.
They did not do a good job with that.
Not very.
It was a little disappointing.
Yeah.
I think craftspeople will probably go bonkers for it.
I also do not want to hold a 220-degree pen. Extruder pen.
It looked like it was pretty well insulated. Like they very clearly had spent time on that design stuff. People
are going to burn their fingers.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, after the Kickstarter stuff's done and when they made a product out of it, it will be in Michaels. It is a Michaels product.
Okay.
But like I have 4 or 5 places in my house where some giant plastic thing, like the vent on top of my microwave oven, somebody grabbed it and broke it loose. It's impossible to glue because of the way the plastic warped. But if I could just weld the plastic across with the extruder pen, it solves that. It fixes that for me. And the part is $120. The 3D extruder pen is $75. That's an easy decision.
$100 now.
Whatever. $100 is a fair price to pay for the ability to poop plastic out.
It's a neat thing, and we should get it in and we'll test it out.
Do you want to talk about Chris Anderson's Maker's Book?
We are running really short on time because we have to run out. Let's talk about Adam's build real quick.
Do you want to do this in what we've been testing?
Sure.
Hey, Norm. You and Adam...
Let's apologize first for a short podcast today.
Yeah,
we're really short on time, both because of traveling and also because of other obligations.
Yes.
That we have to be at. But we really wanted to talk about the PlayStation 4 stuff. But yes, while you were out, we went over to Adam's on a holiday, and Adam had this great idea that we've done many K videos before, and we've shown things he's already built and things he has acquired. and things in the process of being built, but not a
Like
build.
midway in the process, not
yes.
being built.
But nothing being built,
Yeah.
and especially nothing being built from start to finish. So Adam currently has this obsession with boxes,
Yeah, you're not kidding.
and he built a box from start to finish, from pieces of wood to completely finished. And when I say finished, I mean there's finishing on the box in one day.
So we should say sometimes you go over to Adam's shop, and while we're setting up or something, he'll say, "Hey, look at all this stuff I got," and it's like, in this case, it was a box of box hardware, like the little metal corners that go on the edges of the box to make it less likely to crack,
Handles and
clamps, hinges,
and-
the whole thing.
Yes.
And sometimes it's like a bunch of pieces of plastic from some Japanese kit bash thing, or there's all sorts of he frequently has random weird stuff that then will be integrated into a project at some indeterminate period of time in the future. The box thing has taken off in a big way for him. So we have some more box videos coming. I think next week we'll have another one where he weathers some stuff, where we talk about weathering some. But the one day build is really interesting because you get to see him build the whole thing.
And not only see him build the whole thing, of course, there's some thought and planning before he starts the build in the form of sketches.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thought process that goes on, and mistakes are made.
It is-
hands get grimy, and this whole workshop dirties up. But he spurts around, and it's very, very cool just to watch it happen, both in real time and also in the video.
And we'll talk more about stuff. A lot of people have asked about shop safety. We're going to talk about that with him in the not too distant future. It's definitely worth watching that video. I think it's one of the coolest things we put on the site so far because it's not often you get to see somebody who works that way build something. Let's see. You've been testing a Mophie case.
Yes, I'll probably have the review next week. I don't want to give it all away. I would say that it does everything it promises, in that on a day where I'm using the phone very heavily and have very little access to power, and on while traveling, it gave me a full day charge where I otherwise be down to the 5%.
Yeah. People have asked for a scale update, for the smart scale update. I've been using that Withings scale. I used it long enough now and was able to calibrate it versus the doctor's scale. It's awesome. I highly recommend it. It's very good. It's about $100.
We'll be doing the reviews.
We'll do a video of that soon. But the tweeting weight thing has worked really well for me. It's
and the other one does not tweet weight.
the other one doesn't tweet with the Fitbit
weight.
one. People have
Fitbit
also
Aria.
requested a conversation about what I've done to lose weight over the last 6 months. So I'll make a post about that real soon.
All right. Don't eat junk food.
It's not even don't eat junk food. It's don't eat stuff that's bad. The TLDR is don't eat stuff that's bad for you that you don't really love.
And only eat things in reasonable portions.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll have ice cream, but I won't have a pint of ice cream. I'll have a portion size of ice cream. I know you're 27. You can eat pints of ice cream. 28. My Nikon lens adapter for the NEX is my new favorite thing in the world. I'm using my old Nikon manual lenses, which are awesome and far superior to the Sony lenses, at least the ones that I'm willing to pay for. Like you can get a great 24 millimeter, which is equivalent of like a 32 millimeter Nikon AIS lens.
36 millimeter.
It's 1.5 with this adapter because of the distance. So 24 divided by 2 plus 12 is 12.
36.
Oh, yeah, 36. I said 32, didn't I? But an f2 32 millimeter lens for like $250, $350 versus $1,000 for the Zeiss lens.
Yeah.
It's really good. Highly recommended if you have one of those Next cameras, and go to flea markets and junk stores and look for those old lenses. You can find all over the place. eBay is probably the most expensive place to buy them right now.
We'll probably be buying a couple other cameras too to test.
But Micro Four Thirds. Specifically.
I don't like Micro Four Thirds. APS-C, Samsung. I think Samsung's the next thing we'll test.
It's worth renting some so we have some perspective as the new stuff comes out.
And I bought a 6D.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's coming in today.
Really?
We'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
Because we're running out of time.
I can't wait to hear about that. I think we're going to skip questions this week. We have a couple of good ones, but we're a little low. We have a lot of good questions for Adam. Not a whole lot of good questions for this is only a test. I guess that'll do it for us. Make sure you check out the one day build. Make sure you check out Norm and I went and Joey went to Rancho Obi-Wan a few months ago up in Petaluma and saw. I think it's safe to say that's the largest collection of Star Wars memorabilia in the world.
It is.
It is, if you are into Star Wars and original trilogy and Chewbacca and Yoda and stuff like that, you should check out those videos because they are amazing. There's a ton of stuff. Like it was a lot of it was a trip back to my childhood. A lot of it was stuff that I've never actually seen in person and have only read about. Like he has the original Kenner action figure box. The thing that they sold in 1978 because they couldn't get the action figures ready in time for Christmas. So they just sold a box that was a complete set of action figures except for it was empty. And you sent it in to get the action figures. Crazy stuff. A bunch of big custom models, the master replicas, a lot of the master replica stuff, a lot of the FX stuff, a lot of amazing custom models that were just made by fans. It's an amazing video, and it's a kind of, it's an off the beaten path tour, so you may not get there, but it's definitely worth checking out the video. Anything else we want to talk about? I think that's it.
That's it.
We'll
PlayStation 4.
Yeah, PlayStation 4 stuff. We'll be back next week with another episode of This Is Only a Test. If you want to find Still Untitled and you don't know where it is, it's on a new feed now. It's on iTunes or on tested.com/podcast. You can find it there. We appreciate reviews and that kind of stuff. It's always good. And we'll see you guys next Thursday. Bye.
Bye.
Hi there. I didn't see you.
Tested.
Wait. I got to do the outro. Drove up with my van. I was like, hey kids, any of you want some ice cream?
I
think that was a dupe. Yeah.
We've used that before.
Oops. See you guys next week.